Hello and welcome to knowledgebank.pro. Today we're talking about the 3 external tools now available in Power BI Desktop and why you absolutely and positively have to learn how to use them. Quick reminder, those are not 3 Microsoft tools. They are coming from external sources, therefore you have to install them separately, but once you install them, they will show up in the external tools ribbon in Power BI Desktop. And the 3 tools I'm talking about are ALM Toolkit, DAX Studio, and Tabular Editor. I will talk about all 3 of these in this video. I'm not going to go too deep, just to give you a taste of how awesome those tools are, and hopefully make a case for you to start learning about them and figuring out how to incorporate them into your daily routine. The first tool we will talk about is ALM Toolkit. Let me go ahead and launch it. ALM Toolkit allows you to compare 2 different Power BI models and move objects from one model to another. And ALM stands for Application Lifecycle Management. So here I created a model called COPA and PVM, and then I made a copy of this model, named it COPA and PVM calculation groups. Those models are virtually identical. In fact, right now they're completely identical. And I can go ahead and compare them by hitting OK. So I pick the model I'm going to compare from and the model I'm going to compare to. And I can either compare to desktop models or I can compare a model deployed in a Power BI service. So in our case, we'll be comparing 2 Power BI desktop models. I have to have them open at the same time so that this tool can connect to them. So here we have now in the window, the first 2 columns come from my source model, COPA and PVM. And the second one comes from COPA and PVM calculation groups. And you see I have a lot of measures in this model, so this is a little bit busy. What I could do is I could click on Hide Skip Objects, and skip objects usually are the ones that are identical. So if I have the same measure in both models, I don't need to see it. I just want to see what's different. So if I click Hide Skip Objects, you will see that the only difference right now is has something to do with the relationship. Now let me go ahead and create a new measure in one model and see if I can move it into another model. So here in my Revenue Analysis 1 screen, or my From model, I created a measure called Who Am I? And the answer is, in my case, Andre. And I want to move that measure from this model to the other one. So let's see what are the steps to do this. So I'm going to bring up my ALM Toolkit window again. Now I need to refresh this list with my new measure. I could click on Compare again and say OK. This will scan the both models again. I'm going to hide the skip objects. And here's my measure named Who Am I? It exists in my From model, in my source model, does not exist in my target model. And here, by the way, is the script that is required to create that measure. Now what I want to do is I want to move that measure from one model to another. And let's make sure that my destination model does not have that measure. So here's the destination model, and you can see that Who Am I is not on the list. I didn't move that measure in any folders, so it would have showed up right below the utilities. So now what I need to do is, before I sync the 2 models, I need to validate the selection. It gave me some warnings, which is OK. I'm not worried about warnings. And then I'm going to say Update. And there's 2 ways for me to do it. I could click Update. That'll immediately sync this measure into my other model. Or I could say Create Generate Script and use some other tools to run that script and propagate my changes. In our case, for the just to save time, I'm just going to click Update. ALM Toolkit is going to ask me if I'm serious. I'm very serious. I'm going to click Yes. And we see that it's been done. Now I'm going to go ahead, and it says that target updated. Do you want to refresh? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say hide, and we can see that that measure is no longer on the list because it has been deployed in my target model. Let me open the target model, and here you go. You could see that this says Analysis 2, and you could see that the answer to Who Am I is Andre. So we've successfully been able to move measure from one model to another. So why is this tool important? Well, that tool is important, and if you are a Power BI developer, you have to learn how to use this tool and start using it on a daily basis. Is because it allows us to set up a more mature development environment. where now every developer could have a local model on his or her machine. We could have a development mothership to which we are all going to be synchronizing our changes. And then we can start moving those changes through all of the environments: dev, stage, or test, and then prod. And by the way, because we can generate the script, we can now use source control tool, and we could just have a much more robust way of developing. The other awesome feature of that, if I am a super productive Power BI developer and I crank out 100 measures a day, then this tool makes it easy for me to move those 100 measures. Otherwise, I have to then open another model and manually recreate 100 measures. That'll take me another day. With this tool, I can very easily move 1, 200, 1,000 measures between different models with very little effort, and that really facilitates that robust development lifecycle that we can all enjoy. The next tool I want to talk about is Dex Studio. Let me go ahead and launch that. So what happens when I launch that Dex Studio, it auto-connects to the model from which it was launched. So now you could see here in the model section, you can see all of the objects that I have in my model. Now I can use the Studio for a bunch of different purposes. I use it for several reasons. Number one is I use it as a debugging tool. So a lot of times I will create my calculations here so I could test them. I use it as an import tool a lot of times if I need to dump a lot of data out of my Power BI model. And I also use it to do some analysis of my data. So how do I use it as a query tool? So it turns out if you have a development background, you are familiar with the select statement in SQL. So you could type in SQL Server or an Oracle database, you would say select star from weather, and that would return the contents of the weather table. In Dex, an equivalent of that could be evaluate command. So evaluate, if you type evaluate weather and execute this will return the contents of the weather table. You can return also subqueries. So if I want to do a where clause and I say return weather for Illinois, I would just type a filter statement and filter my weather just for Illinois. Let me demonstrate. So this is a filter statement that will return weather for state Illinois, and I could hit Control E or hit run, and this will run that query. And then after a little while, that query will return some results. And here at the bottom, you see the weather data for Illinois, state, type, snow in this case, value, and so forth. So as I said before, sometimes I will create measures here as well. So for example, if I want to know how many rows weather has, what I would do is, so if I wanted to do a query to return number of rows, this is a very simple one. Evaluate requires a table to be returned. So I use a row function that creates that table for me, where here I specify the name of the row and then the cell. Now this is my row count, that's the name of the row, and how many rows are in the weather table. As you can see, it's 3.6 million plus some change. Lastly, you cannot be a serious Power BI developer if you don't use the view metrics feature in this tool. So that is a really cool feature that allows you to understand what's happening in your model. I will do a deep dive on this tool later, but right now I'm just going to say this is an awesome tool to help me understand cardinality of different relationships, of different tables, understand the sizes. So for example, my COPA table here is 87% of the entire database, and I can understand how different columns in a table, how well they're compressed, how unique the values are, and how much of a table they occupy. So this is a really good feature to get some insight as to how performant your model is to some extent, and what information in the model is occupying the most space, and are you storing data efficiently? A lot of times you would look into the statistics to understand what opportunity for improvement this particular model has. The next tool, and one of my favorite tools here, is Tabular Editor. If you follow the channel, you have seen this tool here and there quite a bit, and to be honest, I am moving towards using this as a primary development platform for most of my models as soon as they grow to a certain size, or when they reach a certain limit with respect to number of measures that they have. For whatever reason, after you have a n number of measures in your model, adding more measures is stressing the hell out of a desktop model. For whatever reason, you can right click and add a new measure. Sometimes it will take 10, 15, 30 seconds, and I talked to one customer minutes before you are able to even create a measure, and then you hit enter, and then desktop just sits there waiting another 10, 20, 30 plus seconds to save that measure. So I don't have that kind of patience, so I just use this tool, and that tool works awesome. It doesn't have the same autocomplete as the desktop, so I wish it had some more features of desktop in this. But overall, minus those minor, actually major conveniences, I'm able to be a lot more productive in this tool than doing the same things in a desktop. I'm not going to talk about this too much. Effectively, you can create just about everything that you could do in desktop using this tool. You could create calculation groups here, which is a major drawback with respect to desktop. You cannot create calculation groups. Now in this release, you're able to create things in this tool in the editor, hit save, and then those changes are immediately appearing in the desktop, which is awesome. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. You could create calculation groups, create new calculation groups, and so forth. So this tool is awesome. I'm a huge proponent of this tool, and if you're not using this, you're missing out. In conclusion, or before I wrap up, I really want to say thank you to Christian Wade. Christian Wade works for Microsoft. He's on the Power BI team, and that tool, so it says created by Christian Wade. This tool is amazing. This tool is addressing a huge gap in the ALM space, application lifecycle management for Power BI. And now that this tool is available and is easily integrated in the Power BI desktop, our lives are going to be so much easier. So again, thank you, Christian. In the final wrap up, we talked about the 3 external tools, ALM Toolkit, DAX Studio, Tabular Editor. All 3 are awesome. All 3 are invaluable. And I'm super excited that we're now able to launch them straight from the desktop, and they connect to our model seamlessly. Hope you found this tool super informative and interesting. Please don't wait to start using those external tools. Thank you for stopping by, and hope to see you again soon. Bye.